It's the realest.
So we're going to dive into this technique. I do have some philosophy beforehand. If you're just here to be able to see what the settings are and this and that, I'll have the timestamp right here for you to just be able to know what that is, and then you just go click on it and fast forward. But if you do have the time, I really do encourage you to kind of listen to the philosophy a little bit. I know that it can be tempting just to get the settings and dial that in, but to be a really good engineer, to be a really good mixing engineer, it's good to understand the philosophy sometimes. And I'll try to be quick with it, but when it comes to reverb, a lot of times when we're mixing, especially at more like a local level, you know, when we're working on our own stuff, we have it in our mind that the perception of reverb is a lot more than what it actually is. But if you really study actual professional sounding records, right, you'll notice that it's not as much reverb as we may think. The same thing happens with kick and bass. A lot of times we think it's much more exaggerated, but if you actually listen to mainstream music, it's not nearly as much as we may think it is, right? And so the same thing goes with our reverb, right? And so if you really listen to it, you'll notice that a lot of times that the vocals are a lot drier, right, than we actually perceived. And my mentor, Amon Jackson, he always has a really good saying that if everything has reverb on it, then nothing has reverb on it, right? And so what I mean by that is if we have just all this reverb just everywhere, then we can't even tell what has reverb on it, right? But if we tone down the reverb, or like, let's say for the lead vocal, just don't have any reverb at all, and then just have the reverb on, let's say, the background vocals or some ad-libs, or just have it automated to where it's just, you know, showing up on certain words. The reverb means more, right? And now we can enjoy it more, and it has more of an impact. It's more important to the mix because we're not just getting used to it. We don't have this fatigue, right? And that's what I mean by the perception of reverb. And because a lot of professionally mixed records use that technique where there's not a bunch of reverb on the lead vocal and it's more on the background vocals or on certain parts, we have this perception that there's a lot of reverb happening in the track, because when it does actually show up in the record on a background vocal on a certain word, it means so much more, and we're like, wow, this reverb is huge. But really, when we're listening to the actual record, if you really study, it's not there much. So every morning I wake up and I go for a jog around my block here, right? And I always throw in my AirPods and I listen to like a playlist, right? And it's all like professional songs. And because it's so, you know, close in my ears, I can really hear what's going on. And since I'm an audio nerd and I've been engineering for a long time, I, you know, happen to just really study what's going on just naturally, right? And I'd always noticed that these records, they don't have a ton of reverb on them. For instance, this morning I was jogging, and I know it's a little bit of an older record now, but the song I Like by Jeremiah came on, and I was paying attention to it, and I was like, there's like no reverb on his lead vocal at all. There is actually reverb on his background vocals. So he has these harmonies where he'll double up like the end of like the last word or two of each phrase, and they have reverb on it. So when he actually does have the reverb come in on those background vocals at the end of each phrase, the reverb just impacts and it hits so much more, and it has so much more meaning to it, right? Because we're not so used to hearing it. But I was really studying. I was like, yeah, his lead vocal doesn't really have any reverb on it. Same thing, I was listening to another record. I have a crazy palette of music, by the way. I listen to everything from 2 Chainz to Ariana Grande to Billy Joel, right? So don't judge me. But there was a song by Selena Gomez that came on, right? Same thing. There was like no reverb at all on her lead vocal, right? It was very dry. And I also know too, Jimmy Douglas does quite a few Justin Timberlake records, and he had talked about how he doesn't throw reverb on Justin's lead vocals, right? And if you listen to Kanye records, right, there's not a lot of reverb really happening on his lead vocals either, because it can mean more, right? And there is a technique that we can do that can still create the depth and the space that we're looking for without always having to use reverb. There was a song recently that Amon Jackson and I had mixed for Rick Ross, Future, and Wale called Warm Words. If you actually listen to it, there's no reverb on Ross's vocals in the hook, right? where he's singing warm words in a cold world. There's no reverb on that, right? We only put reverb on the background vocals, right? On his ad-libs that are going on in the background of that record. And that is a professional song. That's a mainstream song that we worked on, that we release, and Ross's vocals are practically dry on there, right? But it's the perception of the reverb that makes us think that there's reverb on it, because his lead vocals in the chorus doesn't have any reverb on it. It's the background vocals that do. And so we hear the reverb on the background vocals so much more, so we assume that there's all this reverb. So I'm going to show you a few techniques here, right? So let's actually dive in. If you were here just to see the settings and stuff, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. So what we like to do here is, I like to use, more than anything, I like to use slap delays more than I like to use reverbs on the lead vocal. I'm actually at a point now in my career, and I've worked on so many professional records and, you know, so many stuff for mainstream artists, that I really have gotten to a point now where I look for any reason not to use reverb, right? I kind of look for an excuse to, like, no, I'm not going to use it at all. So here's a record here, right, that I did for Pharoah. I wish that I could play some of these records like that we do for Ross and Future and all that, but because of copyright, YouTube will take this down instantly. But if you do want to see how we mix those records, AJ and I actually do have a online Zoom class every month that's live, and we actually do show you how we mix records for people like 2 Chainz and Young Thug, Future, Ross. We'll actually pull up the actual 2 Chainz session or the actual Rick Ross session, show you how you mixed it. You'll even be able to dive in there through a remote access yourself as well, and you'll be able to touch a record by Rick Ross or Young Thug or whoever it may be that we're working on at that time. But for the sake of YouTube, I do got to stick with an artist that I work with, because we, you know, don't have to run into issues of YouTube taking it down because of label copyright ownership, right? But anyways, let's check out this record that I did for Pharoah here, right? And there's actually no reverb on his lead vocal.
It's the realest.
One night only. I know that you've been lonely, 'cause don't nobody get you. A circle you're outgrowing. I wanna kiss you slowly. You like it and you show me. I'm present and I'm with you, but I already miss you. I hope it's not an issue if
Okay, so there's a few things going on there, right? So let's go ahead and we'll start out with the lead vocal, what I did here, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and solo this.
only. I know that you've been lonely, 'cause don't nobody get you.
Okay, so it sounds like, you know, it's wet, right? It doesn't sound dry. And that's because I'm actually using a slap delay. I'm not using reverb. So let me show you here what I'm doing with the slap delay. I'm going to bypass the slap delay that I have on here now, and we're just going to start from actual scratch here, right? So first thing that I do is I always do this as a send, right? I don't want to put this on as an insert because, you know, I don't want to lose, especially for a lead vocal, I don't want to risk losing some depth or anything like that. And also too, since we are dealing with a actual delay plugin, I don't actually want to shift the timing of the actual lead vocal. So we're going to use this as a send to blend it in. I do have a video on why you should use sends and returns. So if you want to watch that, I'll put that at the top of the screen so you can click on that there. All right, so the first thing that we're doing is, since this is a send, we're going to put the wet dry at 100% here, right? All right, for the sake of this, we'll start off by keeping the send right at 0. We'll turn it down later. You saw that I had it at -20, but for the sake of why we're working on it, we want to hear it, you know, a little bit louder. All right, so I always got it locked in with the tempo.
Only. I know that you've been lonely, 'cause
Okay, so then what I do here is, there's a few things I'm going to do. One is I'm going to switch this to a dual echo, so that way I can have different options on different sides. So that's going to give me a nice perception of space, because we have each side that's slightly doing something different. And so that's going to trick the ears into thinking that there's more depth and space going on, because there's a slight shift going on. By the way, you can use any delay plugin. It does not have to be Echo Boy. You could use H delay. You could use a stock plugin. There's a Pro Tools one in here called Mod Delay that I used to use for years. You can use whatever it may be that you need to use. I use Echo Boy because I love Echo Boy, and this is just over the years of what I've gotten to really like. But anyways, yeah, so what we're going to do here is we're going to shift this down here to, it depends on the tempo, right? Either a 32nd note or a 64th note. It really depends on the tempo, right? So for the sake of this one here, right, it's a slower tempo. So because this tempo is at 105, right? So I'm going to do a 32nd note. If we had something that was like extremely slow, like a 60 or 70, I would probably do a 64th note. But basically, I'm looking for something that's around this 50 to 60 to 70 millisecond area, right? All right, so the first one I'm gonna lock in as a 32nd note, just straight there, so it's right on tempo. The next one, what I'm gonna do is on the other side, right? So echo 1 is gonna be the left side, echo 2 is gonna be the right side. It's different from a ping pong, because a ping pong is gonna go left and then right, whereas the dual echo will do left and right at the same time. It's just they do two different things instead of left and then right. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So what I'm gonna do on echo 2 is, yeah, I'm gonna have this at a 32nd note, but I'm gonna shift the time by like, just 10 milliseconds. So like I'm actually gonna do, instead of 71.4, I'm gonna do 61.4, right? So that's gonna give us a little bit of shift here. All right, and then the other thing that I like to do here is I like to do a little bit of a low cut here to just cut out some of the lows here. And then just a slight, you don't want to go too crazy on the high cut because you don't want to make it sound like cardboard and make it sound hollow. But I just like to roll off a little bit here. And then this is the big thing, right, is the feedback. We're going to actually increase the feedback. That's where a lot of people go wrong with the slap delay, is actually they don't enhance the feedback, because the feedback is what's going to give it that reverb sound.
Only I know that you've been lonely, cause don't nobody. Only I know that you've been lonely, cause don't nobody get you a circle.
Right? So now that actually kind of sounds more like a reverb, right? So then that's pretty much all you need to do, because I know H delay and a lot of stock plugins don't have this next feature, but because I am using Echo Boy, I'm going to kind of show you my little extra sauce that I do with this. But one of the things I like about Echo Boy is I have these different styles, and I don't have a style that I stick with every single song because every song is different, but I kind of go through and see which one I like.
Only I know that you've been lonely, cause don't nobody get you a circle you're outgrowing. I wanna kiss you slowly, you like it and you show me I'm present and I'm with you.
So for this particular song, I actually do think I like the Echoplex one a lot more. I do know there was another Pharaoh record that I just mixed earlier this week, and I remember I used the tube tape. And then a month ago, because I'm working on Pharaoh's album right now, there was another record I did where I used the Space Echo, and I think there was another one where I used cheap tape. So it all just depends on what fits for the song and what fits for it. It's also preference. My preference on this one is the Echoplex. And then something else I usually like to do, because we are using Echo Boy and it gives us a little option to add a little saturation, I'm going to enhance the saturation a little bit.
Only I know that you've been lonely, cause don't nobody get you a circle you're outgrowing.
Okay, now what I can do is I can pull up this send here, and then I'm going to bring this down, right? It's going to be different between each record. I mean, this one, probably -20, like we said in the beginning of the video for this record, but I've had songs where I've had to bring the slap delay down to -30. I've had songs where I've had it all the way up to -7.5 or -10, -15, whatever it may be. It all just depends on what the song calls for.
Only I know that you've been lonely, cause don't nobody get you a circle you're outgrowing. I wanna kiss you slowly, you like it and you show me.
So you hear how much like depth and space that has, but it doesn't add the how much reverb takes up. Reverb will take up quite a bit here. So let me bypass the slap. And what I mean by reverb will take up a lot of the sonic space. Sorry, sometimes I speak so fast. But what I'm saying is like the reverb sometimes will take up a lot of sonics. It will kind of mask different things. The slap delay kind of gets in and out of there really quick because it doesn't really have a long decay time, because you see, we're at about 61.4 on one side and we're at 71.4 milliseconds on the other side. So kind of gets in and out really fast.
Only I know that you've been lonely, 'cause don't nobody.
So that's dry.
Only I know that you've been lonely, 'cause don't nobody get you.
Right, so we still feel like it's has some processing and wet. It doesn't quite feel like reverb. Now, if I actually just show you reverb instead.
Only I know that you've been lonely, 'cause don't nobody get you. A circle you're outgrowing.
See how much more space that takes up, and it just kind of adds a lot more. It can add muddiness, especially in the record. Here is the Pharaoh's vocal with the beat and has reverb on it instead of the slap delay.
Only I know that you've been lonely, 'cause don't nobody get you.
Okay, now same thing, but let's listen to it with the slap delay.
Only I know that you've been lonely, 'cause don't nobody get you. A circle you're outgrowing.
Right, so we can still have some depth and space, but it conflicts with the instrumental a lot more. Now, here's the other thing that we're going to talk about, right, before we end this video, is I do actually have reverb on the background vocals here, right? So if we look at the session, he has background vocals where he just has certain areas where he's doing this.
I wanna kiss you slowly. You show me.
So that actually has reverb on it. The lead vocal doesn't, right? So now when the background vocals come in and they're just drenched with all this reverb, it means so much more. It impacts more. It has more meaning. It has more purpose, right? So let's listen to it.
Growing, I wanna kiss you slowly. You like it and you show me.
So let's listen to it with the beat.
Growing, I wanna kiss you slowly. You like it and you show me. I'm present and I'm with you, but
right, we can really hear the reverb on those background vocals because they just pop through, they cut through, they soar. Now let's switch this over. Let's take away the slap and put on the reverb here on his lead vocal and give this a listen and see how much does the background vocals really have a impact now.
get you. A circle you're outgrowing. I wanna kiss you slowly. You like it and you show me. I'm present and
Doesn't have quite the same impact. Let's go back to the slap delay. Really pay attention to how they respond to the background vocals.
you're outgrowing. I wanna kiss you slowly. You like it and you show me. I'm present.
And then with the reverb instead on the lead vocal.
You're outgrowing. I wanna kiss you slowly. You like it and you show me.
See how the background vocals get buried with the reverb? Listen one more time with the slap delay on the lead vocals instead.
You're outgrowing. I wanna kiss you slowly. You like it and you show me. I'm present and I'm with you, but I already miss you.
So yeah, it just really allows that to cut through a lot more, and it means so much more, right? It has so much more of an impact. All right, so then the last little thing I'm gonna show you here, because I do this sometimes. I didn't do this in the verse, right? And this is actually a really good example because it shows that not every situation is gonna call for this particular technique that I'm about to show you. There's records where I don't do this at all. There's records like for this one where I'm not doing this on the verse. I'm just doing this on the chorus. There are records where I do this on the verse and maybe not on the chorus. But anyways, we go over here. This is the chorus, right?
Stay for the night. Boy, if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to.
So what I did on there is I actually only have the reverb on the last word that he says. So then when the reverb actually does appear, it makes us think that this lead vocal is just so verbed out and so wet, because when it actually does appear, it's like, wow, that really pops because our ears aren't used to it. So let me go ahead. I'll just solo the lead vocal here, and let's actually give this a listen and hear what's happening here.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to.
So we can actually hear it's just the last word that has the reverb on it. I still do have a slap delay on his lead vocal, and I mean, you know, it's about the same level that I had as the verse. It's like 1.8 difference. Not that much difference, but anyways, it's pretty much the same. But because that reverb is there, it hits and it impacts so much more. So let me play one more time so you can hear just the acapella.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky.
Okay, now listen to it in the mix.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to, baby.
It just, every time that word just comes in with the reverb, it means so much more, and we think that there's so much more reverb going on. Let me show you this. Let me just show you what it sounds like with reverb on the entire chorus, instead of it just being automated to be on certain words.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to, baby. So drunk and I want you.
Okay, it doesn't quite hit the same. Let's go back to it just being automated though, with the slap delay on the lead vocal instead of verb.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe.
See how that just hits a lot more and has a lot more impact on it? I should show you this real quick too, because I'm realizing that for this particular one, I actually put Pan Man, which is an auto panner. I actually put that on the reverb of the chorus, so it's kind of swirling around. I normally don't do that, but on this particular record, I wanted to do that. So I should actually probably bypass the auto panner, because that might be distracting for the technique. I had threw that on there because, like I said, in the mornings, I always jog, and I listen to kind of upbeat music to kind of get me going. And one day, that song by, I think is it Calvin Harris and Rihanna, "This Is What You Came For," came on, and I was listening to it as I was running, and I was noticing that the reverb had like an auto panner on there, and I was working on this particular mix throughout the week, so I was like, you know what? That's actually a really good idea, and I think that would fit for this record, so I put that on there. Anyways, let me take off the auto panner, because that might be distracting to you if you're watching it, this tutorial. So here it is without the auto panner.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to.
Okay, now here it is in the mix.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to, baby.
Okay, and now let's listen one more time with the reverb being on the entire vocal instead of on just certain words. No slap delay either.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to.
And let's compare again to the reverb just being on certain words.
Stay for the night. Go if you like, baby, we're chasing the sky. Maybe we'll fly if you want to, baby. So drunk and I want you, baby. Want you, baby.
Right? So now that we can kind of hear that, we can really see that the reverb just has more meaning. Because like I was saying earlier, that AJ always has told me is that if everything has reverb on it, then nothing has reverb on it. But now when we do a technique more like this, when the reverb does come in, it has more purpose, it has more meaning, it hits more, it also evokes more emotion. It really can, kind of bring that emotion out of your listener, because it's like, ooh, that was nice, that was just kind of came in. The reverb feels more sparkly. It's just much more enjoyable to listen to. So anyways, hopefully that helped it out, and hopefully you got the technique, but hopefully you were also able to sit back and really listen to the philosophy. I know it's kind of long-winded, but the thing is if you really want to get good at mixing and you really want to make a long career out of this, you really do got to understand why things work. It's not always so much how things work. That's good to know too, obviously, but it's really good to know why things work. Why does it make more sense? So that's why in these tutorials, I try to give more of the philosophy and the meaning behind it. I know it makes the tutorials longer, and I also know that that does affect our views, and it affects the algorithm. We don't get quite the same amount of plays as the guy that's like, hey, learn how to make your mix super awesome in 5 easy steps in under 2 minutes. I get it. That's the sexy title and people are going to want to watch that more. But none of those tutorials are really actually going to make somebody a great engineer that works on the type of records that AJ and I actually get to work on. And a part of the reasons why we get to work on records for people like Ross and Future and The Game and Tory Lanez and all of that is because we take our time with this. We're not always just looking for the quick, easy way. So much for taking the time to watch this tutorial. If you found it useful, be sure to like and subscribe because it does help the channel grow. When you like a video, it tells YouTube that you liked it and maybe other people will like it as well. And also be sure to check out my online mixing and mastering courses, the art of beat mixing, the art of vocal mixing, and the art of mastering, all available now. And if this video was helpful and you're looking for other videos, you can watch a video here, here, and here. All right, until next time, y'all.